Usually reading a dog is kind of like reading a children's book, you
Oh,
know?
definitely. Big, colorful pictures, very simple text.
Right. Like the tail wags so the dog is happy, it cowers so it's scared, or it growls so it's mad. The signals are just really loud, and we, as humans, we love that binary simplicity. We want communication to be obvious.
Yeah, we really do.
But if you're looking at certain ancient breeds, you really just need to throw that children's book right out the window. You're trying to read microscopic, almost silent language where like a single millimeter of movement is the difference between a loving interaction and a lethal threat.
It is the absolute definition of a silent language.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so conditioned to expect our pets to over-communicate, right?
Yeah.
So when we encounter a breed that's basically designed to do the exact opposite, we often completely miss what they're telling us.
Which brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We are putting a magnifying glass on one of the most majestic, fiercely loyal, yet fundamentally misunderstood dogs on the planet. I'm talking about the Akita.
Yeah.
And for you listening, you probably know the legendary story of Hachiko, right? The Akita, who waited at a Tokyo train station for his deceased owner every single day for 9 years.
Such an amazing story.
It really is. And that story cemented the breed's global reputation for unwavering devotion. But hiding beneath that fluffy coat and that iconic curled tail is a really complex, calculating, and, well, sometimes intimidating inner world.
Yeah, and we're pulling from a pretty deep stack of behavioral research, breed history, and veterinary insights today to decode that inner world.
Yeah.
Because understanding an Akita goes way beyond standard obedience training.
Oh, for sure.
It requires you to learn their hyper-subtle body language, recognizing the hidden micro-expressions of stress, identifying the chilling phenomenon known as the hard eye.
Which is wild, by the way.
Right. And most importantly, understanding the underlying biology of how to prevent aggression before it even starts.
So to make sense of how they communicate today, we really have to look at the environment that forged them, because their history is basically the blueprint for their stoic body language.
Exactly.
So the Akita originates from the mountainous Tohoku region of northern Japan, and they originally went by the name Matagi Inu, which basically translates to hunting dog. But they weren't fleshing out ducks in a pleasant meadow.
No, not at all.
They were hunting Asian black bears, wild boars, and the Japanese siro in these deep, unforgiving, snow-covered mountain terrains.
And you really have to think about the biological demands of that specific environment. I mean, if you're tracking a 300-pound bear through a blizzard, a dog that barks at every snapping twig, or, one that physically panics under pressure, that's a massive liability.
Right, that dog is going to get itself killed.
It'll get itself and the hunter killed.
Yeah.
A bear will exploit any sign of weakness. So because of this really intense heritage, the Akita was bred to have a massive prey drive, natural dominance, and deep reservations about strangers.
Makes sense.
But above all, they were bred for a specific trait the Japanese call kani.
Kani.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sources describe this as a combination of spirited boldness and absolute composure. Like, it's an unwavering mental strength that's actually written right into the Japanese breed standard.
It's the ability to face down a lethal threat without your nervous system betraying you. Like, an Akita is biologically designed to maintain its cool.
So if a golden retriever is an open book with giant print, an Akita is more like a complex, suspenseful novel written entirely in microexpressions.
That's a great way to put it.
But that makes me wonder about their internal state. Since they are bred for this kani, this absolute composure, are their brains actually suppressing the feeling of stress? Or are they just like masking it from the outside world?
Oh, they are absolutely feeling it. Their nervous systems are processing anxiety, fear, and frustration just like any other mammal. I mean, the stress cortisol is flowing.
Okay, so they're just holding it in.
Right. Their stoic nature means they don't broadcast that internal storm loudly. While another breed might whine, pace, or bark frantically to release that nervous energy, the Akita communicates through quiet grunts, subtle moans, and these physical shifts so tiny you literally have to actively train your eye to see them.
Wow.
They expect you, as their pack leader, to be as observant as they are.
Which forces us to fundamentally change how we observe them, right?
Yes.
We have to zoom in on the actual science of canine microexpressions.
Exactly.
Because their baseline is so incredibly composed, these involuntary autonomic responses are just blinking past us in fractions of a second. Like if you look down at your phone, you miss the warning.
You'll miss it entirely.
So let's break down the anatomy of an Akita's microexpression. And let's start with the whiskers. Because we humans just think of them as cute facial features, but they are highly functional sensory tools.
Yeah, they're actually called vibrissae, and they're deeply connected to this massive network of sensitive nerve endings and a really rich blood supply.
Right.
So when an Akita is relaxed, those whiskers just rest flat against the muzzle. But right before a reaction, like when their brain detects a shift in the environment, those whiskers involuntarily flare forward and tense up.
Like a radar dish turning on to scan for a target.
That's exactly it. It's a pure survival mechanism. By flaring those whiskers, they're actively pulling in microscopic data about air currents and movement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an involuntary physical preparation. It's a sign that their brain has shifted from resting state to active processing.
So if the whiskers flare, the dog is on alert. The sources also point to the ears and the mouth as massive indicators of early stress. Like a rapid flishing or twitching of the ears means the dog's auditory processing is getting overwhelmed, right? Like they can't focus.
Yeah, and if you look at the mouth, you'll see involuntary tightening of the lips or sudden lip licking when there's absolutely no food around. Behaviorists actually call this a displacement behavior.
Kind of like a human nervously tapping their foot or, I don't know, scratching the back of their neck during a really difficult presentation.
Spot on.
Yeah.
It serves a very real biological function, too. The physical act of licking actually helps stimulate the canine's parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, it is a self-soothing mechanism. They're attempting to slightly lower their own heart rate. It's the dog trying to calm itself down, which should be a glaring billboard to the human that the dog is deeply uncomfortable.
Now, I want to challenge a piece of conventional wisdom here because this applies directly to the Akita's tail. The general rule we all learn as kids is that a wagging tail means a friendly dog.
Right.
But reading the behavioral research, it seems like relying on that rule with an Akita is just a recipe for disaster.
You really must completely unlearn the myth that all wags equal happiness.
Okay.
In an Akita, a high, stiff, vibrating tail wag behaviorists refer to this as flagging, is actually a sign of high arousal.
Oh, so not a greeting at all.
No. It can signal dominance or extreme tense alertness. It is very often a warning. And if you only look at that vibrating tail and completely miss the flared whiskers, the tight lips, and the flicking ears, you are walking blind into a potentially explosive situation.
Man.
Okay.
And there is one more micro expression that precedes the explosion, right? The micro-freeze. The dog is just moving normally, and then suddenly, total absolute stillness.
Yes.
It's a moment of rapid calculation. And if a human misses all of this, the lip lick, the stiff wag, the micro-freeze, the Akita's communication escalates into a phenomenon that honestly gave me chills reading about it. The hard eye.
The hard eye is a profound shift in canine communication. Really, anyone who has been on the receiving end of it never forgets it.
I can imagine.
It is the moment a dog's eyes go completely cold, still, and almost reptilian. It is a fearless, highly offensive threat communicating something very specific. It means change what you are doing right now, or there will be severe consequences.
The veterinary sources explicitly contrast the hard eye with the whale eye. And they sound related, but the intent behind them is entirely different, right? Like, whale eye is when a dog turns its head slightly away but keeps its eyes fixed on you, revealing the whites of the eyes. That's rooted in fear, like a desire to escape.
Exactly. Whale eye is defensive. But the hard eye is pure offense. There's zero fear in the hard eye. It is an active, confident challenge.
I really want to dig into the biology of why this looks so terrifying to us, because it's not just a glare, right? The behaviorists explain that there's an actual physical change in the eye itself involving nystagmus.
Right, nystagmus. So nystagmus is the continuous microscopic side-to-side movement that mammalian eyes make constantly.
Like just vibrating.
Basically, we don't notice we're doing it. We don't really notice dogs doing it, but it's how our brains locate objects and build a 3D map of the world. And empathy and mammalian connection rely heavily on these tiny warm movements in the eyes.
But during a hard eye, the dog's sympathetic nervous system engages so intensely that this microscopic movement just completely stops.
Yes, the eyes literally freeze in place. And the cessation of that nystagmus creates a dead, robotic, glass-like stare.
Ah, that's creepy.
It strips all the warmth and mammalian empathy out of the expression. And that is why it triggers such a visceral reaction in humans. Deep down, our primate brains recognize that the empathy is gone and the predator has arrived.
So if I'm standing in front of an 80 to 100-pound bear hunting dog and it gives me a dead robotic stare, my deeply ingrained human instinct might be to puff out my chest, stare right back, and try to assert dominance. Like, show them who's boss. What happens if I do that?
That is the worst possible move you could make.
Really?
Yes. Prolonged eye contact is viewed by the Akita as a direct, aggressive challenge. If they are already giving you a hard eye, staring back is the equivalent of accepting a duel.
So you really just have to swallow your human pride.
Completely. The only correct response to a hard eye is to immediately change your behavior. Stop whatever you are doing, whether you are reaching for their food, trying to pet them, or walking into their space. You avert your gaze, drop your eye contact, and slowly step back.
Okay.
You're basically telling the dog's nervous system, I hear you, I respect your boundary, and I'm not a threat.
So the hard eye is the psychological lock-on. But the dog can't act with just its eyes. The tension immediately floods the rest of the body, right? The mind commits, and the body prepares to execute. The center of gravity physically shifts forward.
Yeah, you'll see them stiffen their legs and rise up on their toes to appear as tall and imposing as possible. Hackles may raise along the spine.
And they lower their head and neck slightly, which initially a human might misread as submission, right? But it's actually a combat stance.
Correct.
By lowering the head, they're tucking away their own throat and jugular to protect it from a counterattack.
And every movement just becomes incredibly slow and deliberate.
Which brings us to a phrase every dog owner has heard after an incident. You know, he bit without warning. Based on everything we just uncovered, that phrase is basically a complete myth.
It is almost always a myth. The dog did not bite without warning. The human simply failed to read a foreign language.
Right.
The micro-freeze was there. The flared whiskers, the displacement lip-licking, the hard eye, the stiffened posture, the entire sequence played out. But because the dog didn't growl loudly or bark like a golden retriever, the human just assumed the dog was perfectly fine.
This sets up a really dangerous dynamic for training, though. Let's say an owner actually does spot one of these warnings, like they hear a low grumble or catch a slight snarl. The natural human reaction is to verbally reprimand or physically punish the dog for growling, thinking they're curing the aggression. But in reality, what is happening in that dog's brain when we punish a growl?
You are basically creating a ticking time bomb. Punishing a warning sign does absolutely nothing to cure the underlying anxiety or defensive instinct. All it does is teach the dog that communicating is dangerous.
It's the equivalent of taking the battery out of a smoke detector because the beeping annoys you, completely ignoring the fact that the house is still on fire.
That is a perfect analogy. If a dog is punished for a low growl, the next time they feel threatened, they will suppress all those subtle signals to avoid your punishment.
Wow.
They're forced to skip the warning phase and jump straight to lunging or biting. You have inadvertently engineered a dog that truly does bite without warning. And furthermore, clinical data shows that up to 80% of canine aggression is rooted in fear and anxiety, not an inherent desire to dominate.
Wait, even in a big, powerful breed like an Akita, 80% is massive.
Even Akitas, they are reacting defensively because they feel their safety or their resources are threatened. So if you use physical punishment or intimidation on a dog that is already operating from a place of fear, you're just proving to their brain that their fear was entirely justified. You amplify their anxiety, which ultimately amplifies their aggressive response next time.
So if punishment is counterproductive, and we now know how to identify this incredibly subtle sequence of stress, the real question is prevention. How do we keep these dangerous situations from sparking in the first place?
Right.
The sources heavily emphasize early socialization, specifically during a very brief developmental window between 3 and 14 weeks of age. Why is that 14-week mark so critical biologically?
Because that is when a puppy's brain is undergoing massive synaptic pruning. They are literally wiring their understanding of the world, categorizing what is safe and what is dangerous.
Okay.
If an Akita puppy has positive, controlled exposures to strangers, different environments, and other animals during this window, their brain categorizes the world as generally safe. But around that 14-week mark, a biological switch flips.
It's an evolutionary survival mechanism, right? Like in the wild, 14 weeks is right around the time a pup might start wandering away from the safety of the den.
Precisely. If they aren't naturally afraid of novel things by the time they leave the den, they get eaten by predators. So the brain biologically closes that window of easy acceptance. The fear response kicks in. If an Akita misses that critical socialization window, their genetic predisposition toward guarding takes over. They may view every unfamiliar person or dog as a lethal threat for the rest of their lives.
And the sources note we need to be particularly vigilant with other dogs. Akitas have a really high propensity for same-sex aggression. Like 2 female Akitas or 2 male Akitas in the same household can turn into a very volatile mix.
Oh, absolutely.
They also have intense resource guarding instincts over food and high-value toys. But let's look at a worst-case scenario. Despite socialization, despite observing the microexpressions, an aggressive incident happens. The dog snaps or lunges. One of the veterinary behavior sources outlines a behavioral first aid protocol called the SOP protocol. Stop, observe, plan, act safely. Wait a second. If I take the first letter of those, that spells SOPA. Where's the T in STOP?
Yeah, it gets a bit mangled in translation. These guidelines originate from European veterinary behaviorists.
Oh, okay.
So the conceptual framework translates to those 4 steps, even if the English acronym doesn't line up perfectly. But the chronological sequence is what matters because it could literally save a life.
Okay, let's walk through the sequence then. Step 1 is stop. Stop whatever you are doing immediately, which makes sense. Intuitively, my panic feeds their panic, right?
Yes.
If I scream or frantically grab their collar, the dog's brain processes that as, oh, my leader is terrified, this situation really is life or death, and they escalate. But if I'm just frozen there, I'm not really solving the problem.
Which is why step 2 is observe. Take a critical breath and assess the actual threat level. Gather data before you move. Is the dog just posturing, or are they actively attacking? Is someone injured? Where are the physical escape routes?
Right. And once I have the data, I move to step 3, which is plan. I need to figure out how to safely separate the dog from the trigger. And the most critical piece of advice here is to never use your bare hands to break up a highly aroused Akita.
Never.
In the heat of the moment, they're in a state of blind reaction. They will redirect that bite right onto your arm.
You need to plan to use a physical barrier. Slide a chair between them, throw a heavy blanket over the dog to disorient their vision, or, use a large piece of cardboard or a baby gate. Then finally, act safely. Execute that plan calmly and deliberately to separate the dog without adding yelling or frantic energy to the room.
Okay, let's play out a hypothetical scenario based on this. Let's say my Akita just had an outburst at a neighbor's dog through the fence. I followed the protocol, I safely managed the situation, the other dog is gone, and my Akita and I are back inside the house.
Okay.
My immediate nurturing human instinct is to drop down to the floor, pet my dog, give them a high-value treat, and say in a soothing voice, it's okay, buddy, calm down, you're fine. Does that strategy biologically lower their heart rate?
It does the exact opposite. It is the most common and perhaps the most dangerous human error made immediately after an incident.
Wait, really? Even though I'm trying to comfort them and de-escalate?
Yes, because you are projecting complex human psychology onto a canine brain. Dogs learn through immediate association. If your dog just engaged in highly aggressive behavior, and mere seconds later you are petting them, feeding them treats, and speaking in a soft, rewarding tone, their brain connects those 2 events. You are inadvertently validating and reinforcing the aggressive behavior.
Oh, wow. They think I just aggressively chased off that threat and now my human is throwing me a parade. I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Exactly. You are rewarding the highly aroused state of mind they are currently in. What a dog actually needs in that moment is decompression.
Just space.
Right. They need to be placed in a quiet, safe space, like a dim room or their crate, with 0 praise, 0 treats, and absolutely no forced interaction. Their central nervous system needs time to naturally downregulate without any external input validating their outburst.
Man, it goes against every nurturing instinct we have as humans, which really just proves how much emotional discipline is required to safely manage a breed like this. To summarize our deep dive for today, the Akita is a majestic, beautiful dog. They are the loyal companion who will wait for you at the train station for 9 years. But they demand respect. They demand a willingness from their owner to learn an entirely new, microscopic physical language.
It truly is a partnership built on profound observation and a deep respect for their biology.
And for you listening, recognizing these signs from the sudden flaring of a sensitive whisker to the chilling, motionless stillness of the hard eye, that knowledge can quite literally protect both the dog you love and the people around it.
I'd like to leave you with one final, lingering thought drawn from the behavioral research. We spent all this time trying to decode our dog's microexpressions, right? But we have to remember that dogs are master body language readers themselves. Because they don't speak a verbal language, their brains are hyper-tuned to visual and chemical cues.
You're watching us just as closely as we are trying to watch them.
Closer even. They can read human intentions before we even act. They can smell the subtle chemical changes in our sweat when our own anxiety spikes. They notice when our breathing becomes shallow or when our own pupils dilate in fear.
Wow.
So the next time you interact with a dog, especially a powerful, perceptive breed like an Akita. Ask yourself, it's not just about what their micro-expressions are saying to you. What are your micro-expressions secretly communicating to them?
Are you writing a simple children's book or a suspense novel of your own? Something to definitely mull over next time you reach for the leash. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.